Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Maricris B. Asido Muega of the UP College of Education. I would like to greet you all a pleasant morning, happy Monday, and this is the first day of our work week, and I hope that we are able to navigate through our way this morning and hindi naman po tayo masyadong nahihirapan sa ating biyahe, sa ating trabaho. First of all, I'd like to greet our teachers, our parents, and also our students and their families. And I thank those who are watching right now and who are joining me right now. Thank you very much for sharing this time. And I hope that we will be able to discuss and learn from each other on this webinar that is focused on home-based education and the role of values education in this whole process. And last time when I was with you, we talked about Learning Reframed Part 2, and we discussed about the role of the home and the reframing of our lens as we look at that home, because at this time of the pandemic, the home becomes the center of the education activities of our kids. And so that was what we discussed last time. And in that particular discussion, we were able to situate ourselves into the context of home education. And if we look at what we have discussed that time, we would see that we were able to look at learning in the context of our homes, and we discussed how this would involve process, the many activities that we will be giving our kids, and it also involves agency, giving our kids and our children the time to be themselves, to think on their own, and to do things on their own. And of course, the last element that we talked about is that it should have a purpose, that the kind of education that our kids are learning at home with our supervision is something that is purposive, that it should be towards something, achievement of a better person. And now in this second webinar, we are going to talk about another topic that is also close to our hearts, and this one is about situating now home-based education toward the learning of our children about the value of the self and others and the world. So pinapalawak ho natin ang usapin to include now the bigger context of the child in relation to others and the world. So welcome to this webinar, and the title of which I will share in my screen, and we will be talking about Learning Reframe Part 2. This is now about the self and the other, about others and about the world. So if we talked about situating learning in the home last time, and about the mechanisms by which we could actually help our children learn values at home, this time around we will be looking at the reframing of our views about learning and education that would also involve the valuing of oneself and the valuing of others in the world by our children. Kalimitan po, pag ang usapin ay tungkol sa pag-aaral sa bahay, home-based education, ang palaging tanong ng mga magulang ay, paano naman matututo ang mga anak namin makipagsalamuha sa ibang tao? At paano naman niya huhubugin ang kanyang sarili? No? Dahil sa alam natin na ang ating mga anak ay makikipagsalamuha someday, no? At ngayon at sa balang araw sa kapwa niyang mga mag-aaral, at later on when he or she gets to work in the workplace, he or she will be working with others. And in fact, hindi ho na naihiwalay ang sariling pagkatao natin sa konteksto ng society. Kaya napaka bigat din ng usapin ng pagkatuto kung paano makitungo sa kapwa-tao at sa mundo. That's why pagdating sa home education, ang palaging tanong ng mga magulang at kahit ng mga guro, no, ay paano ba matututunan ng isang bata ang kanyang magkaroon ng pananaw sa kanyang sarili na nagkukonsidera din ng kanyang um, kapwa-tao o kapwa niya mga bata. At ito po ang ating pag-uusapan ngayon. No? So, kailangan magkaroon ng pagpapahalaga sa sarili ang ating mga anak dahil ito po ang magiging impetus din sa kanyang pagpapahalaga sa ibang tao. Tayo ho lahat ay tao, we are all human beings, and as humans, we have an idea of who we are, a self-concept of who we are. And from this concept of ourselves, we also slowly learn to think about another one who is similar to us and with us, and that's the other human being. And that's the start of the valuing of other people. We become aware as we grow and as we get to experience the environment and the outside world, we see other people's like us, and that's how we are able to see that there is this other person and there are these other people who look like me, who walk like me, who walk like I do, and who also think like I do. And our perspective and view of that other person would somehow influence too or direct to our manner of relating with that other person. And later on, when we and all of us relate with each other, that would also form another another way of looking at the much bigger context in which is the world now. And so that is what we are going to talk about this time. And every time we talk about the self, and theoretically speaking, we are brought to many many theories and many discussions about these. And two or three of the more related terminologies to the concept of the self would be to the valuing of the self would be one, the self-concept, second, our self-worth, and third is our self-esteem vis-a-vis self-worth. Right? We have to see how these two are related with each other. We are talking of the valuing of oneself. So in many education theories, psychology theories, and even in philosophical ideas and philosophical work, self-concept would be construed as something that is about ourselves. So this is the knowledge about ourselves, which may include our beliefs about who we are, about our personality, our physical characteristics, our abilities, our values, goals, and roles, as well as the knowledge that we exist as individuals. So, for example, ang aking ideya na ito ang aking nagagawa, no, ng mga anak natin, no? For example, no, yung kanilang ideya na ay marunong pala akong magsulat na, no, ng mga essays, ay marunong pala akong mag-basketball. Ito pala ang kakayanan ko. Kaya ko palang mag-concentrate ng matagal sa aking mga gawain. O, kasama po yan sa kanilang mga bumubuo ng kanilang self-concept kasi kasama po yan sa kanilang mga characteristics. No? Kasama din po dito ang sinasabi nga nilang abilities, no? Yung mga talents ng ating mga anak, no? Ang kanilang kakayanan, no? Na gumawa ng isang bagay. So, kaya nga napakaraming mga teorya at strategiya na nagsasabing na tumutukoy dito sa self-concept nito at kung paano ito palaguin, no, sa isang bata, no, sa isang learner. In fact, the whole gamut of the education endeavor would be focused on these, no? because when you look at the learning objectives of every subject area, it would have something about the development of many of the things that are found here, the characteristics, abilities, the values of the children and the students. So you'd see there that this is an important concept when you talk about oneself. You have a self-concept. There is also that idea that the self-concept is shaped furthermore through experience. When the child goes through developmental stages, the self-concept also develops and changes. So the child, the psychologist Jean Piaget and the many other thinkers and psychologists and educators have worked on this idea, have researched on this idea, and they said that this self-concept develops as the child grows, as the child is able to experience many things in the environment and with other people. And that's why this is important. So how is this different from the other idea that's related to the self, which is self-worth? So according to the dictionary and of course books on education and psychology, self-worth is the sense of one's own worth, no? And one's value as a person. So ito po yung yung tingin mo sa iyong worthiness, yung ano ba ang aking halaga, no? Na as a person. So itong self-worth po ay merong maraming mga elemento and factors kung paano ito nahuhubog, no? So ang self-worth ay definitely internal to the person because ito yung iyong pag-i-esteem, ito yung iyong pananaw sa iyong halaga, no, as a person, no, as an individual, no, sa iyong sarili. At nahuhubog din ito ng iba't ibang struktura, no, na internal and external. Pero most of the time, ito ay internal, no? Intrinsically developed. No? Kahit na ano ang nandoon sa labas, kung sa external environment, kung ikaw ay intact ang iyong pananaw sa iyong halaga, ay hindi ito gaanong natitinag. No? Hindi natitinag. No? So ano ba ang isa namang konsepto na related pa dito ay ang konsepto ng self-esteem, no? So itong self-esteem ay is what we think, feel, and believe about ourselves, while itong self-worth is more global recognition. So ang self-esteem ay yung ating pag-estima, no? Paano ang pakiramdam natin na worth natin, no? Ating mga kayang gawin, no? So much more of yung confidence mo na ito yung aking nagagawa, no? Ito yung pag-iestima mo sa iyong mga kakayanan, no? Sa iyong halaga, no? Yung pag-estima mo. And so dito naman sa self-worth, ito nga yung ating halaga, yung tingin natin ng ating halaga. No? So, itong tatlong ito, these three concepts are the major constructs that are supposed to be studied when we talk about the self, supposed to be known when we talk about the self. No? Although ito ay, of course, externally, it implicates external factors, ito sila ay pag sinabi mong self, no? Intrinsic po ang kanyang pinaguhugutan, no? Sa panloob. Okay? So, for example, sa self-concept, okay? Dinidevelop po ito intrinsically. Ito yung aking mga kakayanan ng bata, gumawa ng isang bagay, ang kanyang mga abilidad, no? Ang kanyang values. Sa internal self niya po ito na de-develop. Ganon din ho yung self-worth. Yung kanyang halaga as a person, the sense of one's worth, intrinsically drawn po ito ng isang bata. At ang self-esteem po ay ang pag-iistima niya sa kanyang kakayanan. Dito sa self-esteem, medyo malaki din ang pumapasok na dito, no? Ang interplay ng individual self at ng society, no? Yung mga struktura ng society, kasama na rin yung ibang tao, no? At ibang mga kabataan, dahil dito na niya tinitingnan na ito bang halaga ko? Okay? Ito bang mga magagawa ko, self-concept ko, mga abilidad ko, mga characteristics ko, at ang aking halaga ba, no? Ang aking worth, no? Self-worth. Ito ba ay nararapat sa society na ito? So, doon niya na tinitingnan, no? Iniestima niya, tama ba to? Enough na ba ito? Alright? So, may mga criteria siyang tinitingnan. Alright? And the criteria definitely would be, firstly, intrinsic, for self-concept, self-worth, and even self-esteem, right? But definitely and eventually, this will implicate external factors when the child already tries to look for criteria that would tell him or her na oo, okay ka na yung ginagawa mo, okay yung iyong sarili, no? Vis-a-vis society. Kaya nga napaka-importante na ang home-based education ay tinitingnan din po itong pagtuturo nitong valuing of the self. Dahil dito po mag-uumpisa ang napakaraming bagay sa education na magkakaroon po ng ripple effect. Ika nga na sinasabi natin. Mag-uumpisa po sa value ng sarili, right? Kasi tayo ay mga individual, no? Okay, so paano po ba ito dinidevelop at paano po matutulungan yung bata sa konteksto ng home-based education para palaguin niya ang kanyang sarili, no? Kasi nga ang sinasabi nga lagi na you cannot give to others what you do not have in yourself. So, hindi mo po mabibigay sa ibang tao yung wala sa'yo. So, napaka-importante ho nito. At paano ba ito, no? Sa home-based education? So, for example, ang mga magulang, ginagawa na po natin to, right? Hindi lang natin kasi natitingnan na organiza into like lesson plans, for example, unlike what the teachers do in school. Yeah, they plan for an instructional design for a subject area, for example, that would include the teaching and the development of the self-concept, self-worth, and self-esteem of the kids, of the students. And these are all articulated in terms of the curriculum, the activities that are found in the curriculum, and the learning objectives in the lesson and the subject areas that the teachers handle or teach. So medyo klaro ho yan sa kanila. But because this time, education happens at home, then there is this big challenge for the parents and the families and even the community that would support and should support the families to look into the articulation of these kinds of processes and these kinds of designs that should be done in the home, no? Because this is home-based education. So for the coming school year, we're talking about blended education and remote learning and online learning. So there is pretty much a set of subjects and courses that our kids and our children will be learning, will be studying. So in terms of the academic aspect of such education, even if this education will be done at home during this pandemic, period, the academics will be pretty much taken care of by the curriculum that the schools are going to carry out. So the teachers have been doing so much already in fixing this curriculum for us, and they will be delivering this through many platforms, as they have said, through the Department of Education. But the question is, how will this be done as well in the homes by the families and the parents? No? What kind of mechanisms will they use? No? And what kind of strategies could be used? So we may not know it as parents and as families, but we had been doing this ever since, because this is spontaneous to humans, to develop self-concept and to develop to look at self-worth, to look at self-worth and to look at self-esteem as well. Yeah, so these are spontaneous to us, natural to us. We go through this process ourselves. So the thing is, we need to articulate it this time. Ano-ano po ba ang mga activities, no, at ang mga maaring tulong na maibahagi ng mga pamilya at ng mga magulang dito sa pagkatuto ng isang bata sa pagpapahalaga sa kanyang sarili. So to value him or herself. So unang-una ho, ang self-concept ay i-reinforce sa isang konteksto sa bata, no? Sa konteksto kung saan na-encourage ang paghubog ng mga abilidad niya. All right? So, for example, this is difficult in mostly Asian societies, because Asian societies have not been too spontaneous about appreciating the efforts and the abilities of children. Yeah, that's why it takes so much effort from the Asian families and the Asian parents to appreciate and to come up with structures in the home that would show appreciation of the children's abilities, so that these children would be able to develop concretize such abilities that would form his or her self concept. So for example, malimit ho, hindi natin nabibigyang halaga ang napakaraming mga small milestones na nagagawa ng ating mga anak. So kunwari, dati-dati hindi siya nakakapag-fold ng kanyang blanket, ng kanyang mga kumot at naayos yung kanyang bed pagkagising. Ngayon, nagagawa na niya yan, but we do not say anything at all. We do not show our appreciation. And so, mabuti sana din dun sa mga kabataan na very much aware of patterns in the home culture, in the home environment, so that they're able to see beyond. No? But there are kids who would, most kids would appreciate some appreciation from us. No? So that appreciation should be in the form of encouragement of the tasks that they could do already. It shouldn't be something very general like "good job," "great work." No, it should focus really on the things that the kids have done and could do. For example, if the child has done the bed, then you should, ay, maganda. Maayos ang pagkaganda mo ng bed. No? And if you need to reinforce or to correct certain mistakes, no? Or kakulangan, pwedeng sabihin mo, pwede pa ito maayos. No? Pwede mo pa ito gawin in this manner such that tingnan mo. Mas maayos na siya ngayon. No? Mas maayos. So, and then of course, that would be one, appreciation, direct appreciation. Kahit maliit, no? Pangalawa, second, kailangan rin magkaroon talaga ng concretization nito at organization para maging parte ng struktura ng pamilya. Right? By struktura, kasama dyan yan sa home culture, yung struktura. For example, there should be a wall in your homes. Hindi lang naman ito para sa mga may kakayanan sa buhay, no? Kundi kahit po sa ating munting mga bahay, provide a space in your house to showcase your children's work. Yes, of course, you will not showcase something that is not properly done. Yeah? Nire-reinforce pa yan at may scaffolding pa doon. But once there is a good work that you think binigyan niya ng effort at inayos niya talaga according to the intervention that you have provided, then you could provide that, you could show that there. Okay? The language that we use with our kids is also important because language conveys meanings. Nasasabi through the language kung ano yung through language kung ano yung ibig nating sabihin. So for example, if we see that the child's work pwede pang ayusin para maging maayos, let's be frank about it in a nice way. Hindi ibig sabihin na lahat na lang ng gawain niya ay good work or great job kahit na ang pagkulay niya ay lumalabas sa linya palagi, no? Of course, hindi natin sasabihin 'yon. Sasabihin natin, ay mabuti at natapos mo ang iyong trabaho, pero pwede pa ito pagandahin, things like that. So marami actually tayong kayang gawin. Minsan kailangan lang ng language, minsan kailangan lang, yun na yung sinasabi nila, kailangan lang isalita, sabihin. Okay? And then of course, sa pagbubuo ng self-concept ng isang bata, ng ideya niya kung sino siya at kung ano siya, no? At ano yung kanyang values, maigi rin na maraming nakikitang mga exemplars, no? And examples ang bata sa kanyang bahay. Yeah? So for example, gusto mo siyang maging masinop, kinakailangan pong mag-provide tayo ng ganoong example sa ating anak, no? Masinop, no? Hindi maaring turuan ng, lalo na kung bata ito, no? We're talking of kids, elementary kids for example, early learners, no? Kailangan matuto rin siya through your example. Malimit din nga na napag-usapan ito naming mga colleagues, na mga educators, at ng mga nababasa na rin sa mga pag-aaral or research at studies at sa mga libro na kalimitan sa mga batang organized mag-isip, organized sila mag-isip at maayos sila mag-isip klaro, ay meron din silang maayos na struktura na sinusunod. Yung kunwari, maayos ang kanilang mga lamesa sa na kung saan sila nag-aaral, maayos yung kanilang pag-organisa ng kanilang reading materials, right? So, ito ay humuhubog ng kanilang mga abilidad, no? At ang abilidad ay kasama ho sa bumubuo ng self-concept ng isang bata, ng ideya niya ng kanyang sarili. Okay? At kasama rin po dito sa mga struktura na ito ay, for example, yun nga sabi ko, appreciation, and then showcasing the abilities of your children or your child, and then using language that would communicate to the child that you are serious in his or her development of his or her abilities. You're serious and that you appreciate if he or she goes beyond the usual things to be able to do the things and to be able to hone his abilities. The language would be important, and of course the structures in the home. Okay? Kung malimit, magulo, no? At maingay, hindi ho masyadong conducive, no? Para makapag-develop siya ng kanyang mga skills and abilities, right? And then of course, providing the child with varied experiential activities. So dahil pandemya ho ngayon, sabi nga namin ng aking pamilya, ng aking husband, no, pag pinag-uusapan namin, ang pinaka-apektado ho talaga sa lahat ng ito ay ang mga kabataan. our kids dahil hindi ho sila regular na nagkakagawa ng mga bagay na dapat spontaneously nagagawa nila. Like they cannot go out, you know, they cannot go to the outdoors to play in the playground. They cannot go out to be with other kids because in this lockdown that we are going through, that we're having, they are not allowed to go out, right? Sila ho ang mas malaking nawawalan. Okay? Biruin mo po yung spontaneity ng experience na nawawala sa ating mga anak. Kaya nga, very challenging para sa mga magulang. And actually, ang call na ito for us to provide our kids in as much as we could, no? Those kinds of experiences. So for example, dahil pandemya, para sa mga experiences na provide as much as possible, no, spontaneous activities for the kids. So for example, yayain lumabas sa sa walls ng ating bahay, palabasin dyan sa ating bakuran. Okay? Of course, practicing social distancing and all these things, alam natin yan. We would not want to compromise the health of our kids. But sa labas ho ng ating bahay, dyan sa ating paligid, dyan sa ating bakuran, okay? Sa immediate bakuran natin, no? Pwedeng lumabas yung mga bata at pabayaang to feel nature and to breathe spontaneously, no? And to have that spontaneous experience. Okay? Maganda ito kung may siblings ang mga bata, allow them to be together. No? Hindi maaring ang isa ay nag-gadget dun sa loob, ang iba ay give them that space to be together. Okay? And to do activities together, whether within the confines of the homes, and as much as possible, bring them out sa inyong mga bakuran. Kung may mga bakuran po tayo. Kahit gaano po hirap, no? Kailangan magkaroon ng idea yung ating mga anak na may mundo sa labas ng kanilang bahay. Dahil hindi nga ho sila nakakalabas. Na nandun ang mundo at the world continues to be there. It's there. No? Malaking bagay hong nakikita nila ang kanilang mga abilidad vis-a-vis the bigger world, no? Which is really what our talk is all about this morning. No? The reason why we need to have a concrete self-concept, something that is valuable to us. We value ourselves. The reason for this is because we would need also to value other people. So if we do not have that in our self, then it would be difficult also to value other people. And so it's important to build those things in our homes. No? So as we go with our children, as we guide them in their academic studies online, through modules or through TV or to radios, we should ensure that these structures and these processes that would teach them about themselves would be there as well. We should not leave this with the teacher. We shouldn't rely on online discussions of their classes for them to learn these things, because that's part and parcel of their education, the one that they have at home. We have overemphasized that already in our discussion last time too. And that's why it's important for the parents to ensure this. Lalo na ngayon po, hindi nakakalabas yung mga kabataan. Alright. So, in terms of the development of the value of the self, the worth of the self, this is, as the philosophers would say, this is mostly an intrinsic process, right? So they talk about, of course, the more important idea of intrinsic value that is for the sake of valuing of the good, right? And not for the sake of any other thing, but because it is good, it is worthy. So that's why it is valuable. Okay? So paano ito, no? These are very abstract ideas, but when we talk about developing this among our children, paano po ito? Napakahirap, no? So lalo na sa kapanahunan ngayon, no, na maraming mga challenges, no? In fact, this pandemic is a big challenge to all of us, and especially to our kids, because they're not able to see the world face to face, okay, physically, no? So yun na nga, no? So napakahirap ito. But developing self-worth, no, helping our children develop self-worth is important too, because self-worth, ito ang basihan ho ng ito yung pinagmumulan minsan ng napakadaming issues sa mga kabataan ngayon, lalo na patungkol sa kanilang mental health, no? So dahil kung hindi intact ang iyong valuing ng iyong sarili, no, maaaring ikaw ay madala, no, ng iba't ibang mga bagay sa paligid, no? Unang-una, at pangalawa, maaring hindi mo, you do not have a grasp of yourself, no? Nawawala ka sa grasp mo ng kung ano nga ba talaga ikaw, no? At kung ano ba ang iyong halaga, no? So nawawala 'yon. And kung mawawala 'yon, mahirap mong hanapin, no, ang iyong pagkatao. So, kailangan ma-develop ito. And of course, kasama nga sa pag-develop ng ating self-concept, no? Kung consistently nade-develop ang ating self-concept, which includes, as I said, our beliefs about our personality, traits, characteristics, abilities, values, goals, and roles, no? Nagkakaroon din ho ito, no, ng ripple effect doon sa pag-develop natin ng ating self-worth, no? Kasi kung consistent at ang pag-concretize natin ng ating self-concept, so nakikita natin, ito pala ako, no? Magaling pala ako sa ganito, no? At ito pala yung gusto kong maging, no? Ito pala ang mga bagay na pinahalagahan ko. At ito pala ang aking task, no, or role dito sa lahat ng ito. Para pala mapalago ko ito ang aking kailangan gawin. Habang nako-concretize ho yan at regular na nako-concretize, nagkakaroon po ng dagdag sa ating pagpapalaga sa ating sarili. Alam natin kung sino tayo, at kung ano tayong klaseng tao. Okay? Which will bring us to self-esteem, no? So dahil alam natin kung sino tayo, when we go out of the world, into the world, no, sa society, when we get into relationships with our friends, with our family members, no, with our teachers, no, these kinds of relationships, then we would see, no, makikita natin kung, teka lang, no, tama ba itong, parang hindi naman talaga ako, ito ang value. No? Maraming instances na kaya ka nagkakaroon ng problema dahil ang iyong estima sa iyong sarili, sa iyong worth, ay hindi pala katanggap-tanggap sa society, or hindi pala naaayon, or hindi pala ganoon din ang pananaw, no, ng mga, at hindi siya naayon sa mga structures ng society. Kaya mahalaga po na in our valuing of the self, no, this will also bring to fore, no, the valuing of other people, kasi sila yung nandoon no, nandyan, no, at sila yung ating nakakasama, no. Ang ating mga relationships ay kasama palagi ang ibang mga tao, no? Kaya nga siya relationship, no? At ganun din sa bigger picture ng mundo, sa bigger context ng mundo. Dito pumapasok ito, no? Kaya intrinsic ho siya Sabi nga natin dito sa slide, no, intrinsic siya, but implicates external factors. No? So, kagaya ng sinabi ko, kailangan palaguin, no, sa bahay itong mga bagay na nakakapagpahubog ng pagkatao ng ating mga anak. Okay? And so, dito sa ating home-based education, uh, alam kong big challenge, pero alam kong kakayanin ng ating mga magulang, no, kasama ng mga kaguruan, no, kailangan tingnan dahil nga lumalabas ang bata kahit sa virtual lang yan na konteksto, paglalabas din yan sa kanyang sarili kasi mag-aaral siya ng lessons sometimes online with other children, and mag-interact din siya sa kanyang guro. Yeah? Kaya magandang may suporta rin from the home through the parents that doon sa mga activities sa bahay that would also further enhance, no, the child's development of his or her own self-concept and self-worth, and then later on would redound to the kind of self-esteem that would be developed in him or her that would positively contribute to sa kanyang pagkatao pa rin. So, importante ho na ganyan, okay? And so, dito ho, may tanong, no? So why is it important to develop self-worth and the valuing of the self, no? So, bakit nga ba importante? No? Hindi ba pwedeng pabayaan mo na lang yan siya dyan, no? At kung ano yung nararamdaman niya at kung ano man yan nararamdaman niya sa sarili niya, siya na yung nakakaalam. Importante ito na dinidevelop at ng mga magulang no, sa bahay, sa home education, dahil this is crucial to a variety of moral judgments that your children will make later on, or that the children are making about others and the world. So, marami ho tayo, ano bang moral judgment? Ito ho ang mga judgments, ang mga posisyon or stand na ginagawa natin tungkol sa mga issue na may kinalaman po sa kung ano pa ang tama or mali. So, kailangan hong nabubuo ang self-worth ng isang bata pa na nasa-stabilize, nabubuo, nakukoncretize para ho nakakapamili siya ng maayos, ng nararapat. At ang pinipili ay yung mabuti, no? At para sa kanyang kabutihan. Yan ho ang reason kung bakit ho natin ito kailangang tulungan ang ating education system, no? Na ituro rin ito natin sa bahay sa ating mga anak. In fact, sa ating discussion last meeting, di ba, we had this discussion about the fluidity of knowledge, that knowledge and knowing and learning and education do not happen in a disparate way, that when I am in the home, I'm not a learner. I don't learn. I just do that in school. We talked about that in Learning Reframe Part 1 last week, that it doesn't happen that way because the person or the child or the learner is a whole person. Hindi naman niya pwedeng iwan yon sa school na, I'm going home now. Ang pagiging learner ko ay iwan ko dyan. Yeah? At sa bahay, ito naman ako. No, iba naman ako. I'm no longer a learner when I'm at home. That's not how it goes because the person behind that learner is the same person who goes back and forth the home and the school. Back and forth, the home, school, back to society, back to home. Isa lang siya pa rin yan. No? And that's why dito sa Learning Reframe Part 2, kung saan pinag-uusapan natin ang development ng valuing of the self and others and other people, ganun din po yun. Hindi natin pwedeng sabihin na wala akong kinalaman sa pagtuturo yan at hindi yan natututunan sa bahay dahil sa paaralan lang yan or task lang yan ng simbahan or ng religion. Alright? No. Uh, ang bata ho na nasa bahay natin, ang anak natin na nasa bahay natin is the same child who who prays, goes to church, the same child who goes to school and studies his or her lessons. And will be the same child who will interact with other people in society later on, and the same people or child who will be out there in the world to make a difference, hopefully. And so, hindi ho yan, pag gumawa ho siya ng mga moral judgments, hindi ho niya yan hindi niya sinesegregate at sineseparate. But our kids, just like us, would make judgments based on his or her own idea and perspective na nandyan sa kanyang pagkatao. Kaya nga po, magandang discussion natin ito palagi sa konteksto ng pagkatao, ang sarili ko, my own self, the value ng ating mga anak na binibigay sa sarili niya ay kanyang pagkatao yon, no? Kasama sa kanyang pagkatao. Kaya nga, kung yan ang pag-estima niya sa kanyang pagkatao, malamang po ang mga judgments na gagawin niya patungkol sa pakikitungo niya, sa pakikipagkapwa-tao niya, ay mabuti at maayos. No? So, kaya nga natin ito kailangan ituro. No? So, that's the reason why it is crucial to a variety of moral judgments that we make about others in the world. No? Kaya natin kailangan ituro sa bahay. No? May fluidity yan. No? Hindi maaring isegregate. Okay? And because there is this fluidity na sinasabi natin, this one would redound to relating our children's valuing of others in the world. No? Kaya nga palagi, di ba, ito palagi kong binibigay na examples sa mga klase ko pag nag-uusap tungkol sa pagbubuo ng pagkatao, no? Kung ano ba ang pagkatao natin. No? Malimit, pag ang isang tao ay hindi gumagawa ng karampatang moral judgments, hindi nagkakaroon ng maayos na moral judgments about things such that nakakagawa siya ng hindi mabuti, hindi maayos, ang sinasabi palagi natin ay tinatawag natin ito in terms of referencing the animals, no? In fairness to the animals, no? Dapat hindi ganoon. Pero palagi natin sinasabi yun na pinamumukha natin na hindi ka nagiging tao. Hindi ka tao. Hindi yan yung sarili mo. Okay? Hindi yan, no? Pag gumawa, sasabihin natin, di ba may term tayo sa Tagalog na nagsisimula sa H, no? Hindi ko sasabihin, di ba? At it ends with P. Okay? Masama man dito sa mga, sabi ko nga sa animals, no? Dahil palagi nating sinasabi ito, pero ito yung ginagawang comparison, no? Na pag hindi ka gumagawa ng maayos ng moral judgments mo ay hindi para sa mabuti, ang sinasabi, hindi ka nagiging tao. Hindi mo kilala ang sarili mo na tao. No? Hindi mo nakikita at hindi ka nagpapakatao. Alright? Yun palagi yung ating sinasabi. Kaya itong buong usapin ng pagtuturo sa ating mga bahay on how our children should value themselves, palaguin ang sarili, this is because they need to make moral judgments in relation to other people and in relation to the world in general. Kaya napakahalaga po nito. Kaya nga po, ang challenge nito, the reframing, di ba, ang unang reframing ay ang pananaw ng education can happen at home. Alright? And because that had always been the case from the past, no? Kailangan lang natin mag-reframe that it happens at home. So this time around, in this second webinar, the reframing should be an education in the home that involves, number one, conducive home culture and environment, conducive to our children's learning and developing of the value of themselves as people, as humans, no? Nagpapakatao. Okay? Kailangan i-hone yan, no? Kanina nagsabi tayo ng mga mekanismo, right? Now, kung tayo ay hindi rin respectful of our kids sa ating home environment, how can that possibly impact doon sa ating mga anak, no? So ganun yun po, no? Napaka-importante ang kultura na sinasagawa natin sa ating mga bahay. Ito yung ating mga beliefs, ito yung kasamang mga struktura na meron tayo. By struktura, sabi ko nga kanina, ang ating mga sinasagawa sa bahay, kasama ang practices, kasama ang ating mga proseso dyan, no? The language that we use, no? And number two, this home education should be one that is consistent and with concrete applications. Okay? Consistent in a sense that nakikita niya palagi ang regularity ng paghubog ng ganyang valuing of himself and others sa bahay. At may concrete exemplars, no? At may concrete consequences, mga applications, no? Na kunwari, bakit mo sinasabi na kailangan ng anak mo lumabas, maglaro doon, mag-breathe ng fresh air, mag-commune with nature, and to simply see the world out there. Bakit? So dapat makita niya konkreto. Dahil nagkakaroon ng clarity sa utak ko dahil nakaka-breathe ako ng fresh air. Hindi lang ako dito sa loob ng confines ng aking bahay, no, at nakikita ko yung greenery outside, yung mga sa paligid, no. Nagbabago yung aking mood, no, and nagbabago ang aking pagpananaw sa mundo, no? So mga konkretong applications dapat kung sinasabi mong mahalaga ang exercise, nakikita dapat ng anak mo, ng ating mga anak, na through exercise pumapayat siya, lumalakas siya. Okay? Oo, may mga concrete consequences na nakikita, right? And it should be purposive. I had been discussing purposiveness since reframing part 1 last week because this is very important. Para saan ba? That kind of reframing regarding education that is done at home toward the development of the value of the self among our kids and the value of others in the world should have a purpose. Para saan po ba? Our kids should know this and should understand this. Okay? Para saan? No? Para po, again, I will say, para maging mabuti in general. Mabuti ang kondisyon, mabuti ang ating pagkatao, mabuti ang ating pagpakikipagkapwa-tao. Para po yan dyan lahat, no? So yan po ang ating usapin ngayon, no? At napaka-importante ho na sa bahay natin ay may ganoong fluidity, no? Na hindi lamang sa learning objectives ng isang subject area sa school, whether they're doing this virtually or online or face-to-face in school, but for now virtually, of course, no? There should be fluidity of this in our homes as well, no? Kahit wala hong pandemya, kasama pa rin po yan, no? So I hope that we have been able to thought about this, no? As we discussed today, no? And kasama po tayo sa paghuhubog ho ng pagkatao ng ating mga anak. At napaka-importante ho ang role ng mga pamilya, magulang at ng ating mga tahanan. So, muli po, nagpapasalamat ako sa ating lahat sa pakikinig nyo at pagsasama nyo sa akin ngayong webinar, no? So, sa susunod, ang ating pangatlong webinar ay tungkol naman ho sa education as a pillar, no? Values education as pillar, no? home as a pillar of values education. So maraming salamat huli sa pakikinig at manatili ho tayong bukas ang isipan para sa napakarami hong mga oportunidad na tayo naman ho, mga magulang at pamilya sa ating mga tahanan, ang maging frontliner sa education ng ating mga anak. Kaakibat po ang ating mga kaguruan at ang ating mga paaralan. At hopefully po, kaakibat din ang ating bigger and community and society. Maraming salamat ho at kita-kita ho tayo ulit sa Miyerkules. Okay, so we are now ready to answer questions from our viewers. There is a question from Ms. Honey Galase Paking. As parents, how can we hone our children's self-worth and self-esteem for them to become assets of our society? Kagaya nga ng sinabi natin kanina, Ma'am Honey, merong mga sinasagawang mga mekanismo sa bahay, like for example, as we have mentioned earlier, we need to put up certain structures in our home so that the culture that will be honed dito sa ating mga kabahayan ay isa kung saan ang self-esteem at ang self-concept and self-worth ng ating mga kabataan ay tinututukan, no, para lumago itong mga ito, no. So isa would be to come up with structures. For example, we have to plan how to put these structures up in our homes. So for example, we have to look at the kids, no? Ano ba yung kanilang interest at ano ba ang kanilang ginagawa, kasi kasama po sa kanilang self-concept ay kanilang mga abilidad, no? Ang kanilang mga kakayanan. So, kinakailangan ho natin itong tingnan. No? So, come up with a structure in the home that would hone this. Kasama po dito, paano give a small space for your child to think freely, to speak up freely. Hindi po pwedeng palagi natin silang pinapatahimik, no? We will not be able to know what is it that they want to do, that they want to become, if we don't give them that space to speak about themselves, no? So kailangan may gano'n, no? Kasama sa struktura po yung language na ginagamit natin ng mga magulang. By language, we just do not mean, kagaya ng sinabi natin kanina, we just do not mean yung salita, no, nang magsasalita ka, but the tone of the voice and the manner by which you talk to your kids, no? communicate to your kids, no? So kailangan may ganoong elemento sa struktura ng ating bahay, no, ng home culture na yan. So kasama po dyan yung appreciation, the language that we use, that would mean that we appreciate the abilities of our kids, of our children. So we need to show that appreciation, but for not showing this in a general sense, like when you say good job, no, to all the things that they do, but to really look at the tasks that they have done well. Look at the specifics, and for example, if the child before couldn't color within the lines, no, usually early learners do that. You do not just say that good job, right, because he or she finished the task, but you have to point out which part of the job was done properly. So for example, mabuti yan at natapos mo, kulayan hanggang sa dulo. Okay? You don't just say good job, no? So mga ganoong examples po, no? At marami pa yang mga pwede nating gawin, no? Kasama po dito provision of activities and experiences, lalo na ngayong pandemya, hindi nakakalabas ang mga bata. So kailangan meron pa rin silang experiences and activities that would allow them ideas about what's going on outside. So literally, you can bring your children, as I said earlier, outside the confines of your homes, sa inyong mga bakuran, para tumingin ho sa labas. makita nila ang regularly na gumagalaw pala ang mundo sa labas, no? Kasi nasa loob sila ng bahay, na hindi maganda yung hindi nakakaganda sa pagbubuo ng self-concept kung nandun lang sila palagi sa loob ng literally ng walls ng bahay. Okay? Kaya you have to physically bring them out, guide them to be out there, right? And also, ang paglalabas po ay mamumulat ka rin na meron palang the world goes on, no? And it moves on, no? At kailangan niya ito to cement, no, that idea sa kanyang self-concept na kailangan ko palang tingnan ang sarili ko vis-a-vis the world. Kailangan ko pala ito titingnan, hindi lang pala ako. Kaya nga from the self to the world, to the outside, no, to toward other people and toward the world, no. So marami pa po yung mga pamamaraan, pero ilan po yan sa mga naiisip natin. And then kailangan ho ang sinasabi nga natin sa home culture ang structure. We have to plan it for our kids, no? At ang language na ginagamit, appreciation, no? Ang mga meanings na kino-convey ng ating mga sinasabi, and then of course giving them as much as possible experiences, no? No matter the limitations brought about by this pandemic, no matter the that they are here inside their homes, but we have to give them that experiences kahit papano. Letting them watch the news, right? Relevant news would also be one form, and discussing what happens in the news when you are, for example, together and eating and just having conversation about this. Okay? So, meron din pong katanungan kay JS Harabe Mangilimutan. Ma'am, paano po yung mga estudyante na nakaranas ng mga pambubulas? I think yung pambubulas ay bullying, no? At masyadong mababa na ang self-esteem. Ano ang pwedeng gawin ng mga guro upang matulungan, lalo na ngayong panahon ng pandemya kung saan mahirap ang komunikasyon sa mga kaguruan? Oo, totoo ito. This is one aspect in society na kailangan tutukan din, no, yung bullying. Lalo na ngayon, hindi lang ito mangyayari physical bullying, kundi online and cyberbullying, no? Dahil nasa internet palagi ang mga kabataan, no? Dito po sa kung paano sila matutulungan kung nakaranas ng bullying, meron po ang ating mga eskwelahan, ang ating mga paaralan, merong mga mekanismo kung saan pwedeng dumulog ang mga magulang, at sana nga po kasama sa orientation na ibibigay ng ating mga paaralan ang parte dito tungkol dito sa mekanismong ito, no, na paano yung mga batang nakakaranas ng cyberbullying, saan pupunta. Sana ho ang mga school systems natin at ang mga kaguruan ay maganda ang komunikasyon with the parents pagdating sa mga bagay na ito. Usually ito ho ay tinatago din ng mga kabataan. No, nagmamanifest na lamang din ito sa kanilang mga araw-araw na na behavior, no? Hindi natin minsan ito naririnig from them. Kaya importanteng magkaroon ng pagkakilala ng inyong anak para malaman ninyo, uy, parang umiiba yung aking anak. Parang may problema. Hindi po pwedeng isantabi kung nakararanas po ng pambubuli ang anak. So, sa mga magulang ho, dahil ang mga anak ho natin ay mag-aaral sa confines ng ating mga bahay, please coordinate with your schools and with the teachers, no, on this matter, especially when your children ay nakakaranas ng bullying. Meron hong mga eksperto, no? At alam ho ng mga guro paano i-handle ang ganitong mga situations, no? Hopefully, no? At meron hong mga opisina at mga eksperto na pwedeng puntahan, no? Isa rin ito again sa mga areas kung saan kailangan ho yung collaboration ng ating local governments, no? Dahil ang education ay mangyayari sa bahay, kailangan hong meron silang the local government should actively pursue, no, putting up these kinds of mechanisms in the barangays in their areas. Kasi nga hindi makakalabas yung mga bata eh. So there should be mechanisms kung saan ang mga magulang ay pwedeng dumulog ng immediately sa mga eksperto patungkol po dito. Okay? So sana magkakaroon ng ganitong mga struktura sa ating mga pamayanan. Pero meron ho yan sa eskwelahan. Get in touch with your schools pag meron na pong ganitong mga nararanasan yung ating mga kabataan. From Miss Dian Rodriguez, ay Teacher Dian, Ma'am, how about some families who are living in small shanties near the main roads or along the railways? Can you suggest how the parents can still provide simples or some activities for the kids? Yes, Teacher Dian, ito yung isa sa biggest challenge ng home-based education na sinasabi nga natin na merong mga kabahayan or mga pamilya kung saan hindi medyo conducive ang mga ang home-based education kagaya dito sa mga kabahayan So sa pagkakaroon ng pag-develop ng self-concept or ng pag-valuing of the child of himself or herself at ng ibang mga bata, mahirap itong gawin. Kasi for example, paano siya nga naman lalabas nasa gilid ng tren ang bahay. Sa mga ganitong paraan, lalabas ang creativity ng mga magulang, ang kanilang ingenuity dahil nga kulang ang space, walang outdoors to speak about, to speak of, So maaring sa loob ng kanilang bahay maglalaan pa rin kahit papano ng space para sa pag-aaral. Marami akong nakikita sa mga news na ganito na kahit maliit ang bahay or magulo or walang space, magkakaroon ng regular na lugar kung saan mag-aaral ang bata, kung saan mag-uusap sila. At dapat ayusin. Kaya nga it takes so much from the parents. Parents ang efforts para sa gawin tong mga to. Hindi sila nakalalabas dahil nasa gilid sila ng tren. So, kailangan may mga activities. For example, reading would be one. Of course, dito sa mga scenario na ito, sabihin mo, ay, napaka out of touch sa reality dahil sa ganitong mga areas, hindi naman nakakapagbasa ang mga bata. Kaya nga po uli, sa ganitong mga areas, collaboration ng local government yan po at ng mga organizations. There should be mechanisms na napupuntahan kahit papano or natutulungan ang ating mga sektor na ito para makabuo sila ng isang home environment na conducive sa pag-aaral at pagkatuto ng self-concept ng kanilang mga anak. Hindi nila, I think, kayang gawin na sila lang sa mga ganitong konteksto. Kailangan ng dobleng tulong. Okay, dobleng tulong. So, dito sa mga konteksto ito, ang mga magulang kailangan nag-iisip ng paraan. I'm sure there are some parents in these kinds of contexts who are very much creative into giving their children experiences. Pagbabasa, pakikinig sa news para magkaroon ng awareness tungkol sa mundo sa labas. Kalimitan kasi ang ginagawa ay nanonood ng telenovelas at ng kung ano-ano pa. Kailangan hong papanoorin or papakinggan sa mga cellphones ang bata ng balita tungkol sa kanyang pamayanan. Okay? Mahirap pero kailangan ngang pag-isipan collaboration ng school, community, and ng mga pamilya. Lalo na sa sektor kung saan hindi talaga kaya ng magulang at ng mga pamilya na turuan mag-isa ang kanilang mga anak or gabayan ang kanilang mga anak. Okay, so from Sol M. Cabinte, how can we strongly encourage our kids to appreciate and embrace this new normal education for quality learning on this online using online distance education. Actually, ang mga kabataan po ay marami sa kanila mas lamang sa atin pagdating ho sa knowledge ng teknolohiya. Kaya para sa kanila, hindi sila gaanong nahihirapan kung ang pag-uusapan lang ay yung how to navigate through the internet when they are studying, no, through online education when they are studying. So hindi sila gaanong nahihirapan dito, no. So ang magiging mas mahirap ito para sa mga magulang, no, sa ating mga magulang, dahil hindi naman tayo nasanay na nag-aaral online, yeah. So, magiging mahirap lang po ito sa mga kabataan pagdating ho sa content ng kanilang pinag-aaralan. Dahil syempre hindi nila face-to-face matatanong ang kanilang mga guro, right? So that they would be given immediate answers, no, when they have questions, and when things are not clear to them, walang immediate na solution at sagot. So, mangyayari lang, magchat-chat siya sa guro, etc., etc. Unlike when they are face-to-face, no, they could readily ask the teachers, no, and consult with the teachers. No? So, dito sa bagay na yan, dahil mahihirapan sila, academic support po ng magulang kailangan. No? Support ng mga magulang sa kabataan. Now, ang tanong, paano kung hindi rin alam ng magulang? So the kind of support in that case would be providing them with materials, no, with avenues kung saan nila pwedeng kunin ang mga sagot, no, kung wala pang ready answer yung teacher, no, or meron kang enhancement sa kanyang pagkatuto ng kanyang through online education. Kaya nga I think the kids are ready in terms of technological knowledge or technical knowledge because they had been using the computers, no, they've been doing online work, but I think the parents are the ones na kailangang tutukan din, at it would not be too late to learn. Yeah? Tayo rin mga magulang, pasukin rin natin yung Zoom na yan. Kaya ano ba yung Zoom na yan? No? Ano ba yung Facebook na yan, Messenger, at ano ba yung Google Classroom? So inaaral din po natin yan. And I'm sure maraming mga parents orientation sa schools kung saan mayroong pagtuturo yung mga eskwelahan sa mga magulang tungkol sa pag-access din nitong mga technology. So, yan po ang ating magagawa para sa ating mga anak. From Maria Dolores Carino, how can parents contribute to their children in terms of distance learning? Yun na nga po, providing them the space to work on their own as much as possible, but being there for them if they need clarifications and questions, providing them the materials. Now, by materials, we do not just say na, oh, ito lapis, ito ballpen, yan, that's it. No, the materials na kailangan nila para magkaroon ng enhancement, no, additional learnings, dahil ang modular learning at ang online learning would be limited. Yeah, hindi naman lahat ng sasabihin ng guro ay nandoon sa slides niya right? So kailangan nating dagdagan, no, ang kanilang mga materials, no. At it will not hurt us if we learn also, if we go through the same Zoom, aralin yung Zoom, Google Classroom, kung ano-ano pang mga platforms na, and it will surprise you, madali lang naman. Okay? Madali lang naman po aralin, no? So, ang mga magulang ho na pinapasok ang dinadaanan ng mga kanilang mga anak ay mga magulang po na mas magkakaroon ng mas deep understanding of their children's self-concept, no? Ang kanilang magkaroon ng idea kung paano tutulungan yung kanilang mga anak hubugin ang pagkatao, no? So, okay. From Richard Atienza, how can we encourage and promote conducive learning environment within the immediate surroundings outside of home that greatly impact the child's learning? I am specifically referring to environment noise such as karaoke, loud music by close neighbors, which affect child's focus and concentration. Yes, kagaya nga ng sinabi natin kanina, Sir Richard, kailangan dito ng very sana active participation or collaboration ng ating local workers, no. Hindi ho kasi maganda na napakaingay, no, sa ating environment kung nag-aaral ang ating mga kabataan, no. But that's the reality in many of our barangays, no. So kailangan ho sana nito merong tulong na binibigay yung ating mga local governments, yung barangays. Palagi ko yan sinasabi kasi yan yung larger context kung saan napapaloob ang home at kung saan napapaloob ang mga kabataan natin at hindi nagagawa ng magulang lamang, no, ang suporta sa education ng mga anak. Kaya nga ito yung sinasabi na it takes a village to raise a child, 'di ba? Kailangan magtulungan yung mga institusyon or mga mechanisms dito sa ating environment and community. Maari ho natin kausapin ang ating mga kapitbahay, no? Sana lang open-minded din sila at dahil may mga anak din silang mag-aaral, siguro, no? Na magkaroon ng limit sa oras kung kailan sila at kung kailan nila pwede gawin yung weekends na lang, okay? Wag na yung pag may pasok, no, ang mga kabataan dahil oo nga naman mag-aaral sa bahay, no. So sana nga po may mekanismo kung saan pwede mag-reach out ang mga magulang, no, para sa ganoong paglalatag ng conducive learning environments. No, sana rin po sinasagawa. Palaging ang pinag-uusapan ho sa news na naririnig natin, puro teachers ang inahound tungkol dito sa online learning and home-based education na ito. Ano na nga ba sila preparado? How prepared are they in their online modality, no? And so on and so forth. Wala man lang nagtatanong, no, kung how prepared is the community. How prepared is your barangay? Yeah? How prepared are the neighborhood? Is the neighborhood, no? Are the people in your neighborhood? No, meron bang ganoong platform ng pag-uusap tungkol sa direct and immediate environment? Tama po kayo, sir, no? Kailangan may ganoong pag-uusap din yan. Hindi lang yung sa mga guro, nagagawa ho nila yan. Ginagawa nila yung mga modules, ginagawa nila yung kanilang mga online presentations and so on. Now the question is this: paano ho ang ating barangay? No? Paano ho ang ating neighborhood? No, I've heard of some of my students would share, and some of my colleagues would share that at least in their area, they talk, no, online, no, nagzo-zoom din sila sa kanilang mga areas, no, bahay-bahay, nagtutulungan paano natin gagawin to, no. Alam nyo ba ano yung, di ba? Magandang gawin din yan, no, magandang effort yan from our communities, no. Why not do online chat, no, with your neighbors to see, no, how you can help out each other. As I said, it takes a village to raise a child. And from Miss Sally Valenzuela, ma'am, ano po ba ang magandang strategies na pwedeng gawin dun sa mga estudyante na mababa ang self-esteem para mabalik ang kanilang self-confidence? Firstly po, kung ito ay ano na talaga, no, malalang kondisyon ng estudyante, kailangan ho natin ng help ng eksperto, ng experts. So you could communicate to the teachers and to the school dahil meron ho silang experts dito sa mga bagay na ito. Sa bahay ho natin, magkaroon ho ng space kung saan pabayaan ho nating sanang mag-communicate ang ating mga anak sa atin, no, tungkol dito. Usually, itinatago ho nila ito sa kanilang mga sarili kaya lalong lumalala. That's why it would help if you provide them as well with the kind of environment that would help them feel that they could speak out freely. that they could communicate with you. So from our end, from our homes, that is one thing that we can do when there are cases such as this. But it would help if you communicate to the teacher and to the school, because the schools would have provisions for this. They would have a pool of experts to deal with these kinds of concerns among of your children. Okay, so from Raquel Escal, how can teachers help the learners who has problem with their parents? Naku po, ito ho yung problema rin kasi marami hong mga estudyante ang mas nagko-communicate ng kanilang mga ideas sa guro kaysa sa mga magulang. Dito ho, magandang magkaroon ng line of communication between the parents and the teacher, because definitely kahit ano pong gawin ng teacher, kung hindi rin nalalaman ng magulang, wala hong mangyayari, lalo na ngayong pandemya, nasa bahay ang mga bata. So there should be communication so that the interventions and the measures that would be implemented by the teacher dito sa problemang to will also be the same, at least, no, na ginagawa ng magulang sa bahay, no. So isa 'yan sa bagay na kailangan gawin, communication and communicate with the teacher. Pangalawa, the parents again, no, palagi kong sinasabi, ang mga magulang, no, kilalanin ho ang pagkatao ng ating mga anak. Ang malimit ho, tayo ay dumaan din sa ganito, pero na nakakalimutan ho natin when we get into that age or level where we have already learned so many things, experienced many things, we tend to think that our kids would be able to also understand these experiences. But hindi iba ang kanilang dinaanang konteksto, iba ang kanilang dinaanang experiences, no? So hindi tayo absolutely magkapareho, no? So ang challenge ho sa mga magulang na kilalanin ho ang pagkatao ng ating mga anak at respetuhin po ito. Respect our kids, no? That's the first thing that we should do, no? That we should give our kids, no? So that they would learn to communicate with us, their parents, no? And second, give them the guidance, no? Provide the guidance according to the context na dinadaanan ng bata, no? Hindi naman pwedeng pabayaan lang kasi ito yung gusto ng anak ko, ito pabayaan ko. But the kind of communication na nirerespeto, may dialogo, di ba? Communication is not always proving who is correct, who is wrong, who is right, who is, my experience is way better because sa panahon namin noon. Ngayon yun palagi, no? But may panahon din ho ang mga bata Panahon din nila to, right? Let's give this to them, no, na kung saan matuklasan din nila na ito pala ang aking konteksto, ito yung aking mundo, ito ang aking panahon, and I need to contribute. And I need to be to hone my person, ang pagkatao ko, so that I would be able to contribute constructively to the world. Okay? So dito naman sa mga guro na nagkakaroon ng ganitong problema, kailangan din ho magkaroon ng mas malawak na pangunawa at pasensya sa mga magulang, no? At ang mga magulang ganun din sa mga guro, no? Magkaroon ng kagaya nga ng mindset, no, reframing na para saan ba talaga to? Okay? Kasi palagi ang hindi pagkakaintindihan ay between the parent and the kid and between the parent and the teacher ay manggagaling sa lente kung saan ang tingin nila sa learning ay rigid. Ang tingin nila sa lahat ng ito ay hindi, kailangan siya matuto ng math, and so on and so forth. Hindi, yung ideya ko yung tama. Ako ang magulang, ako ang masusunod. Okay? Ang teacher naman sasabihin, pero ma'am, sinasabi ng anak nyo, overbearing kayo, no? Masyado niyo siyang tinatalakan, etc., etc., etc. So walang nagsasalita ang mga tao, tama naman ang kanilang mga sinasabi, okay, given their own lenses, but there is really no meaningful dialogue that's going on. Diba? No meaningful dialogue, meaningful in a sense that there is resolution or compromise that will happen, because everyone speaks out and everyone has his or her own lens that he or she takes takes on, you know. So ang maigi po dito, lalawakan ho, no, magre-reframe ka. At ang pag-reframe nito palagi naka is grounded on para saan ba to? Para kanino ba to? Reframe, no? Para saan lahat ng ginagawa ng magulang, ng guro, ng estudyante. Yeah, pag natutukoy natin to kasi pag itatanong natin sa level na yan, sasabihin na ay para pala magkaroon ng magandang pagkatao ang bata to help him or her navigate through the world in the future. Kasi sabi nga natin, hindi natin panahon. Noong panahon po natin. Ngayong panahon po ng ating mga kabataan. Kaya po, sana ho, bigyan natin ng ganong puwang ang reframing na mangyayari. No? Mahirap mag-reframe kasi it takes so much courage from each one, not only the parents but the teachers too, and the students themselves, and the community. Paano natin, how do we view ourselves? How do we view our world? How do we view other people? Reframing would always be good. So that we would begin to have this kind of dialogue that goes beyond merely speaking our minds out, you know. The kind of dialogue that would really be meaningful because it would come to compromise and acceptance, no, of things. All right? So marami pa pong mga katanungan kanina dito sa ating mga comments. Nagsabi si Sir Francis Lugo na marami na ring usapin sa media, sa schools tungkol sa self-concept, self-worth, self-esteem. Ang suggestion niya ay pag-usapan din yung solidarity. Tama po yan, Sir Francis, no? Solidarity is a good thing to discuss, no? Dahil ito na nga po ang sinasabi nating review things disparately, no? Hiwa-hiwalay, may sariling lente, may sariling perspektibo nung panahon ko, etc. Sabihin naman ng iba, hindi mo na panahon. Okay? So, kailangan magkaroon ng, sa dulo ng lahat ay, ang patutunguhan ay, yun na nga, purpose. And what's the purpose? To live together. To be able to live together in a flourishing way, no, na sinasabi nga ng mga Greek philosophers, kung saan ang good ang namamayapa. You know? So, para mangyari yan, tama ka, Sir, na ang dulo na yan ay solidarity or the kind of learning to live together, no? Despite our differences, right? And it takes reframing too. Okay, so hanggang dito na lang po muna tayo sa ngayon, no? Samahan niyo po uli ako sa Wednesday para sa ating webinar kung saan ang ating pag-uusapan ay ang home as the pillar of education and values education. So salamat po sa nakinig at people who joined us today, for our teachers, our parents, our families. And I hope some kids are listening to, some students are listening to. Sana ho magkakaroon tayo ng seriousness dito sa ating ginagawa, sa ating home-based education. And it takes a kind of reframing of our thoughts about things, perspective about things, that would translate as well to action. No? So, mabuhay ho ang ating mga kaguruan, ang ating mga magulang at ating mga pamilya, lalong-lalo na ho ang ating mga estudyante. Hanggang sa muli, magandang umaga po.